Welcome to the MindSpark, bringing you the latest news from around the world. The news broke like a thunderclap on a clear morning. Television screens across the nation flashed urgent red banners. Mexico halts auto part exports to the United States. In Detroit's River Rouge complex, the first signs of crisis appeared not on a screen but on the factory floor. The morning shift had just begun, the usual symphony of robotics and conveyors filling the air. Suddenly, a supervisor's voice crackled over the intercom. The parts were not coming. The line would stop. Silence fell over Assembly Line B. Robotic arms froze, the conveyor halted, and half-finished trucks sat motionless. Workers exchanged anxious glances, confusion and disbelief spreading. The plant manager's grim expression confirmed it. This was real. The lifeblood of the American auto industry had been cut off at the source. Dave, a veteran line worker, stared at an empty parts bin, wrench in hand. He'd never seen the line stop for something like this. The silence was more deafening than the usual noise, a sound of uncertainty and livelihoods hanging in the balance. Maria, who installed infotainment systems, put down her tools, thinking of her daughter's tuition and the mortgage. The news spread from phone to phone, confirming the reports. Mexico, a critical partner, had closed its borders to the parts that kept these factories alive. The initial shock curdled into a cold, hard fear. For the men and women of River Rouge, and thousands like them across the country, the world had just changed in an instant. The great American machine had been forced to stop. The factory floor, once alive with motion, became a portrait of industrial shock. Whispers turned to anxious murmurs. Was this a drill, a glitch, or something worse? The answer was clear. This was a political decision made hundreds of miles to the south. The air grew thick with tension no machine could measure. Across the country, similar scenes played out as the news spread. The silence in the factory was a stark reminder of how quickly everything could change. The American auto industry, for the first time in generations, stood still. River Rouge was just the first domino. From Ohio to Texas, the story repeated. One by one, America's great auto plants went dark. Machinery that built the nation's cars and trucks fell silent in a coordinated nationwide paralysis. News helicopters captured images of vast empty factories, sleeping giants. Inside, there was only eerie stillness where thousands should have been working. In Toledo, unpainted Jeep bodies hung like ghosts. In Kentucky, unfinished sedans waited for engines that would never arrive. The shutdown was so abrupt that tools and coffee cups were left abandoned. The scale was unprecedented, a stark reminder of the nation's dependence on global supply. Workers gathered in parking lots, faces etched with worry, sharing rumors and fears about lost income. The uncertainty rippled outward, from factory gates into towns and cities. This was more than economic disruption, it was a blow to American identity. The silent factories stood as monuments to a new, vulnerable reality. The country was forced to confront a difficult truth. Its industrial engine was more fragile than anyone had imagined. The speed of the shutdown was rooted in the just-in-time supply chain. Factories received parts as needed, minimizing storage and waste. A marvel of efficiency, but with no room for error. American cars are built from parts that cross borders daily. Wiring harnesses from Juarez, seat covers from Puebla, transmissions from Querétaro. The system relies on a seamless, predictable flow. When Mexico halted exports, the chain didn't just break, it shattered. Within hours, factories ran out of critical components. An assembly line can't run with 99% of its parts. The absence of a single wiring harness can stop a $50,000 truck. The just-in-time model, once a strength, became the industry's Achilles heel. In pursuit of efficiency, resilience was sacrificed. No warehouses of backup parts, just a tightly wound spring, snapped by Mexico's embargo. The shutdown was a direct result of this vulnerability. The very system that made the industry profitable now caused its collapse. The silence in the factories was a testament to a broken chain. The true cost of the shutdown was measured in human terms. Layoffs began immediately, temporary workers first, then full-timers furloughed. Each number was a family facing chaos. In towns like Flint and Lordstown, the impact was devastating. The factory was the economic heart. Diners, grocery stores, and small suppliers saw business evaporate. Sarah, a single mother, now navigated unemployment and explained cutbacks to her kids. Mark, a third-generation auto worker, worried about his pension and the future of his industry. Food banks and charities were overwhelmed by new requests for help. The shutdown's ripple effect touched every corner of these communities. Empty dealerships and soaring used car prices were visible signs of turmoil. But the invisible costs, stress, anxiety, loss of hope, were just as profound. Behind the politics and economics, real lives were at stake. The shutdown was a calculated political move, not an accident. Months of trade tensions and tariffs led to Mexico's bold retaliation halting auto part exports. Washington responded with outrage. The president vowed not to back down, promising to put American workers first. Trade representatives threatened harsher sanctions while rhetoric on both sides intensified. Mexico framed its actions as defending sovereignty and demanding fair treatment. Both nations dug in, turning the dispute into a high-stakes standoff with global implications. The U.S. used its economic power. Mexico targeted a vulnerable industry. It was asymmetrical economic warfare, a dangerous game of political chess. The world watched as two partners became adversaries. Millions of livelihoods hung in the balance. The crisis spread far beyond major automakers. Thousands of smaller suppliers, Tier 1, 2, and 3, were hit just as hard. A plastics company in Indiana, a machine shop in Pennsylvania, orders vanished overnight. These businesses lacked the reserves to survive a prolonged shutdown. For every job lost on the main line, several more disappeared at suppliers. The pain was national, not just in Detroit. The auto industry's halt slashed economic growth forecasts and rattled the stock market. Car dealerships emptied, used car prices soared, and even trucking and advertising felt the impact. The shutdown revealed how deeply the auto industry is woven into the American economy. Mexico's move sent shockwaves through nearly every sector. The US-Mexico trade crisis sent tremors through the global economy. Germany, Japan, and South Korea watched with concern. Their own factories in the US were affected. The crisis exposed the fragility of international supply chains. The World Trade Organization and global leaders urged swift resolution, fearing a global recession. With North American supply broken, US companies sought new partners in Canada, Brazil, and Europe. Trade delegations arrived, exploring new alliances and shifting the balance of global manufacturing. Other nations reassessed their own vulnerabilities, spurring a movement for more resilient supply networks. The crisis became a case study in the risks of economic interdependence. The world watched a real-time test of globalization. The outcome would shape the future of international trade. After weeks of tense negotiations, a breakthrough was reached. A phased rollback of US tariffs was exchanged for the immediate resumption of Mexican auto part exports. Factory lights flickered back on, the hum of machinery returned. Workers greeted each other with relief and a renewed sense of purpose. But the crisis left a lasting mark. Vulnerabilities had been exposed. Companies invested in new technologies and diversified suppliers. The push for reshoring led to new US manufacturing jobs. Factories were redesigned for flexibility, able to switch models and suppliers quickly. Workers received training in robotics and advanced manufacturing. The industry moved toward a hybrid model, global efficiency with regional security. New alliances were forged and innovation accelerated. The shutdown was painful, but it became a catalyst for reinvention. The American auto industry emerged stronger, smarter, and better prepared for the future.